It was the night of my 30th birthday. I had been planning the perfect evening for months, envisioning a quiet, intimate celebration with Emma, my wife of 5 years. We had already discussed the romantic getaway to celebrate this milestone, where I planned to propose to her once again, this time with a real engagement ring, something I'd been saving up for a long time. We had been through a lot together, overcoming ups and downs. I thought our relationship was strong, built on trust and love. We were going to spend the weekend in a beautiful cabin by the lake, just the two of us, with no distractions. I had been counting down the days, excited to surprise her with a special evening, dinner, candles, and the ring I had carefully chosen. But everything changed at exactly midnight. My phone rang, shattering the silence of the night. It was an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me I should answer. "Hello?" I said, my voice filled with expectation for a birthday greeting from a friend or family member. The voice on the other end was calm, unsettlingly so. "Your wife is with me right now. She's sleeping." I froze. I thought I was dreaming, or that it was some kind of prank. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still confused and half laughing. "I'm not your friend. I don't know you, but I know your wife. We've been seeing each other for the last 3 months." My heart dropped. I had no words. The voice continued, unfazed. "I didn't know she was married. She told me everything about you. How perfect you two were. How you were planning a getaway for your anniversary. But I figured you should know the truth." At this point, I still couldn't process it. It felt like a twisted joke. "Why are you calling me? What do you want?" "Listen," he said. "I've got proof. Pictures, messages, screenshots. She's been lying to you for months." I stayed silent, not sure what to say. The man on the phone sent me the evidence. One by one, my phone buzzed with messages from an unknown number. Photos of Emma, laughing and holding hands with this man at places I'd never been. Texts between them planning their secret meetings, flirtatious words exchanged, words that I never thought I'd see coming from her. The realization hit me slowly. I still didn't want to believe it. Maybe this was all staged. Maybe it was a setup, someone trying to mess with me. But then I saw the last message, a screenshot of a text message from Emma. "I can't wait to see you tonight. He has no idea." I felt like the room was spinning. I had planned to give her the best night of her life, to make it unforgettable. But now, I was the fool in my own story. I tried to call Emma. Nothing. I texted her. Still nothing. The sinking feeling in my stomach grew deeper. I needed to know if this was real. I needed to confront her, but at that moment I didn't know how. My thoughts were racing. How could she do this to me? To us? I decided to go to the hotel where she was supposed to be. It was her work trip, something she'd been preparing for weeks. She had told me it would be a busy few days, but I didn't think anything of it. I trusted her. I threw on my clothes and got in the car, driving to the hotel she was staying at. The entire ride there was a blur, my mind not able to settle on a single thought. Was this really happening? Was this my life now? When I arrived at the hotel, I hesitated at the front desk. The receptionist smiled at me, completely unaware of what was happening. I asked her which room Emma was staying in. She looked it up, handed me the room number, and wished me a good night. I stood in front of her door for a moment, my hand shaking as I knocked. The silence that followed felt unbearable. Then, the door opened, and there she was, Emma, standing in the doorway, looking surprised but not startled. I could see the confusion in her eyes as she tried to process the situation. Behind her, I could hear a faint rustling noise. My stomach twisted. Then I saw him, the man who had been with my wife for months, standing in the shadows of the room, looking awkward but not apologetic. His presence confirmed everything. For a moment, I stood there, staring at them both. I could hear the words I wanted to say, but nothing came out. My heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest, and all I could do was stare at the woman I thought I knew, standing there with a stranger. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream or yell every part of me wanted to. Instead, I turned and walked out. As I left the hotel, I took off my wedding ring and left it on the nightstand in her room. The next morning, I posted a video on social media. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need to say anything else. It was just a video of me looking directly into the camera, my expression hollow. "On the day of my birthday, I found out who you really are," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me, and then I simply walked away. I didn't know what to expect after I posted the video. Part of me wanted to retreat into silence, to disappear and never look back. I wasn't sure if anyone would even care, but I felt like I needed to do it for myself. A public acknowledgement, a declaration that the life I thought I had, my marriage, my future, was a lie. I didn't hear from Emma immediately. The days that followed were an emotional blur. I had to go through the motions of life, work, interactions with friends and family, all while this gnawing emptiness ate at me from the inside. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Emma to reach out, to explain herself, to apologize. But the only thing I received were messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, some of them offering sympathy, others simply shocked by what had happened. A few days later, Emma finally contacted me. She called me, her voice shaky, trying to explain herself. I didn't pick up. Instead, I just stared at my phone, knowing deep down that there was nothing she could say that would make this right. She'd crossed a line, one I could never undo. The texts came in, more frantic, desperate, but I ignored them all. Then the phone call came again. This time I answered. "Please, just let me explain," Emma's voice cracked. "I never meant for it to happen. I didn't want to hurt you. I wanted to scream at her to tell her how much pain she'd caused. But instead, I just sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. The person on the other end of the line wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't the person I trusted with my heart. I didn't recognize her anymore. "You've been seeing him for months," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "How could you do this to me? To us? After everything we've been through?" "I'm so sorry," Emma started, but I cut her off. "No, you're not sorry," I said, my voice rising now. "You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry because you didn't think I'd find out. But you didn't care enough to stop. You didn't think about me, or what we had." The silence stretched on again, and then Emma spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "It wasn't like that, I swear. I don't even know how it happened. It was just something that happened. I got lost. "You got lost? Is that your excuse?" I interrupted, anger flooding through me. "You chose him over me. You chose to lie. You chose to betray everything we built together. You don't just get lost like that. You made a choice. More than one. And I'm done." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could feel her crying, but it didn't matter. "What did it matter now? I don't even know who you are anymore, Emma," I said softly, the realization settling in. "I thought you were my partner, my best friend. I thought I was enough for you." "You were. I didn't want to lose you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "But I messed up. I messed up so badly." I couldn't respond. I couldn't bear to hear any more. The words were hollow now, empty. She could say anything, but it would never change what she had done. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you," and that was the last thing she said before I hung up. I blocked her number shortly after. I didn't need any more lies, any more explanations. In the weeks that followed, I slowly started to rebuild. The first few days were the hardest. I spent long hours just thinking, replaying everything in my mind, questioning myself, doubting my instincts. How did I not see it? How did I miss the signs? But as time passed, I realized that it wasn't me who had failed, it was her. She was the one who had betrayed me, the one who had broken the trust. I had done nothing wrong. The only mistake I had made was loving her too much, trusting her too fully. I moved out of the apartment we shared. I sold the things that reminded me of her, of us, the gifts we exchanged, the photos of vacations we had taken together. I couldn't keep them. They were no longer part of the life I was building. I started to focus on myself. I spent time with friends who had supported me, who were there for me when I needed someone to talk to. I returned to hobbies I had forgotten about, things that brought me peace before she entered my life. And slowly, I began to heal. Eventually, I deleted the video I posted. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting back at her. It was about letting go. I had nothing left to prove to anyone. It was my story to tell, but I didn't need to broadcast it anymore. I had come to terms with what had happened. In the end, I realized that the worst part wasn't the affair itself, but the betrayal. The realization that the person I had loved with all my heart had been living a double life. I didn't regret the time I spent with Emma, but I was finally free of the person I thought I knew. It was a painful chapter, but it was over. And I was ready to move on, to find someone who could love me the way I deserved to be loved, honestly, fully, without secrets. I spent months going through the motions, trying to rebuild my life and rediscover who I was outside of the mess that Emma had left behind. It wasn't easy. Some days I felt like I was making progress, getting stronger, regaining my confidence, and learning to trust myself again. On others, the weight of it all would hit me, and I would find myself staring at the phone, wondering if I should just give in and reach out to her. But I never did. The hardest part, though, was the loneliness. Even with friends surrounding me, it wasn't the same. Emma had been my partner, my best friend, the person I turned to in the morning and at night. To suddenly realize that she wasn't who I thought she was, and maybe never was the most crushing blow. I kept reminding myself that I had to be strong, that I deserved better. I had to believe that there was more to life than betrayal. But when the quiet moments came, I couldn't escape the feeling of emptiness. I knew I had to focus on myself, but it was hard. I found myself in situations where I could have easily met someone new. I went on a couple of dates, nothing serious, nothing lasting. It wasn't that I wasn't interested in other people. It was that I wasn't sure if I was ready. Every time I looked into someone else's eyes, I wondered if they, too, would one day turn into the person I never expected them to be. One of my friends, Mark, who had been with me through this whole ordeal, told me I was being too hard on myself. Dude, you can't let this ruin your entire future. You have to trust again, even if it's hard. Not every person is going to betray you like Emma did. I didn't really listen at first. He was right, of course. But trusting again, letting someone else into my life, letting myself be vulnerable, was something I didn't think I could do. Eventually, I started focusing more on work, on getting back to what made me happy before all of this happened. I dove into projects that I had let slide when I'd been so consumed by my relationship with Emma. Slowly, I started to gain back a sense of purpose. I traveled. I spent time alone, reflecting on who I was and who I wanted to become. But the past wasn't as easy to escape. Emma would occasionally send messages, sometimes apologizing, sometimes trying to explain what had happened. But no matter what she said, the damage was done. The trust we had built was gone. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Her apologies, though heartfelt, felt empty to me. I had learned too much about the person she had been behind my back, the person who had chosen to lie and betray me, to ever see her as my wife again. And that was the thing I struggled with the most. Knowing that the person I had loved wasn't the person I thought she was. The betrayal wasn't just about her sleeping with someone else. It was the lies, the secrets, the total disregard for everything we had shared. I couldn't wrap my mind around how someone could go through all the motions of a marriage, all the promises, and still betray their partner so completely. But as time went on, I started to see it differently. I realized that Emma's actions were about her, not me. Her decisions were a reflection of her own issues, her own failures. She had chosen to lie, to be dishonest with me, but that was a choice she made on her own. It wasn't about me being good enough or not. It was about her being selfish and unable to communicate or confront her own desires. I had to let go of the narrative I had built around our relationship, the idea of a perfect love, a perfect marriage. It was a hard truth to face, but it was necessary for me to heal. I couldn't keep holding on to the illusion of what we had. It was gone, and it was time to accept that. I remember one particular night, a few months after the breakup, when I was out with friends. We were at a bar, just relaxing, talking about life, when a woman caught my eye from across the room. She had a warm smile, a gentle laugh. She wasn't anything like Emma, but there was something in her that reminded me of who I was before all the pain. We exchanged glances, and before I knew it, we were talking. It was an easy conversation, no pressure, no expectations. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of something. Something that wasn't rooted in betrayal. We didn't exchange numbers that night. We didn't make any promises. But as I left the bar, I realized something important. It wasn't about finding someone to replace Emma. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about being open to the possibility of love again. I wasn't ready for a relationship then, but I was ready for something else. The freedom to feel again. The freedom to trust in myself, to trust in life. And in time, I learned to trust in others too. The journey of healing wasn't a straight line. There were days when I felt stronger, and others when the weight of the past pressed on me like a vice. But every step forward brought me closer to being who I was meant to be, without the shadow of betrayal hanging over me. And as I moved forward, I kept reminding myself that sometimes the worst thing that could happen, the most painful experiences, can lead us to the most important revelations. That I had to let go of the person I thought I knew, and in doing so, I would eventually find the strength to love myself again. And maybe, just maybe, love someone new. It's been over a year now since everything happened. I've healed in ways I didn't think were possible back when I was drowning in pain and disbelief. Some days I still think about Emma, but it's not the same. I've let go of the idea of what we were, what we could have been. She's become just another chapter in my life that I learned from, no longer a part of my story. I never got closure from her. She reached out a few times after the breakup, offering apologies and explanations, but I knew nothing could fix what she had done. There was nothing left for us to say. Every word she said felt like a hollow echo of the person I thought I knew. I realized the truth. The pain I felt wasn't about her or the affair. It was about losing myself in a relationship that wasn't real. For a long time, I let my identity be defined by her and the life we built together. But in the end, it was all a facade. The hardest part wasn't just losing her, it was finding myself again. Over time, I began rebuilding who I was, step by step. I focused on the things that made me happy, things that weren't tied to her. I traveled. I worked on projects I had neglected, rediscovered old passions, and spent more time with friends who supported me unconditionally. Slowly, I stopped thinking about what I'd lost and started thinking about what I could gain. It wasn't an easy journey. At first, the loneliness was unbearable, and I questioned my worth. But I realized that I didn't need anyone's validation to be complete. I didn't need to find someone else to fill the emptiness. I needed to fill it for myself. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing that everything I thought I knew about love was wrong. I had loved Emma with everything I had, and yet she chose to betray me. But I learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about trust, honesty, and commitment. And those are the things I would never compromise on again. A few months ago, I met someone new. Her name is Sarah. It wasn't anything big, nothing life-changing. We talked, got to know each other slowly. It was casual, nothing serious. But as we spent time together, I began to realize something important. I wasn't scared of love anymore. I wasn't scared of being vulnerable or trusting again. I'm not in love with Sarah yet, but there's something comforting about being able to share moments without the weight of the past. I don't need to rush. I'm letting things unfold at their own pace, something I didn't do with Emma. The truth is, I'll never forget what happened. It's a part of me now, and it shaped who I am today. But I've learned that I am more than the hurt I experienced. I'm stronger, more aware of who I am and what I need from a relationship. As for Emma, I've stopped hoping for answers. I've stopped expecting an apology or closure. I've realized that the best closure I could give myself was to move on. I've learned to forgive, not for her, but for me, so that I could move forward. Now, as I look ahead, I realize that my story isn't defined by betrayal or heartbreak. It's defined by my ability to rise, to grow, and to keep moving forward. And that, in the end, is the only story that matters.